Hey you guys, Happy New Year and welcome back to Bright Violet Arts. My name is Valerie Morris, and in this video I will be setting up my bullet journal for the month of January 2023. The theme that I'm using this month is beauty and self-care, and it just turned out looking like so pretty and fresh to me. I'm really excited to use this notebook, and I went all in on the illustrations this month. So my focus in this video is to share with you guys as many tips and techniques as I can for coloring and illustration, and I will be recommending my favorite materials for this as well. Starting off with the cover page art, I have drawn in a little still life scene from a salon or a spa to kind of set this vibe of beauty and self-care. And I am going to primarily use markers on this. I'm using a mix of highlighters and some Tombow markers. But for my outline here and for some other details, I will also be using some acrylic paint pen. To add a more realistic finish to my lava stones, I've used a black paint pen for a base coat, and then I'm going over top with some black sparkly metallic watercolor that'll make it look a little bit more like a natural rock. To add highlights to my objects, I'm using a white paint pen, and this is going to give a little bit of opaque white shine. And this is a technique that I like in everything that I draw. Anytime I'm drawing, or rather coloring an illustration, I like to put in a little bit of a highlight and a little bit of a shadow on each object. To get a consistent look for all of my text this month, or my headers and titles for these pages, I typed everything out that I wanted in the papyrus font, which is just a standard word processing font, and I am transferring that into my journal and then just going over it with an outline and a paint pen. So at this point I liked the illustration, but I didn't love it, and what I did to amp it up a little bit was add some additional contrast. That is something that I learned in an art lecture a long time ago, that people are scared to add contrast because they don't want to ruin what they've done so far. But that is actually the answer to adding more drama and interest to your piece, is to add just darker colors and lighter highlights. And I'm even doing that here on these rocks. I'm using a white charcoal pencil and a black charcoal pencil to add some highlights and shadows to the watercolor surface that I gave it, and I really liked how it all turned out at the end. So there's the cover page. Moving on now to my calendar spread for January. This was an interesting one. It took me a really long time to think up a design for this page because the calendar had such a weird shape this month. It had 6 rows, and 6 rows is always weird because it takes up most of the bullet journal page, and it took me so long to figure it out, but I finally did, and it was just like a light bulb moment. I realized that I could fit the curve of a woman's neck under the edge of the calendar, and so once I figured that out, I was off and running. So I drew in half a face here of a woman, and she's giving herself a facial, right, like a clay mask or something. So I'm using a nice transparent ink here for her skin tone, and I'm blending it in with 2 to 3 shades that are similar in tone but still have a definitive light, medium, and dark value between them. So wherever I have a shadow that's hitting the object, I'm going to use my darkest tone for that, but then I will overlap it by switching markers to the medium and the light, and I will kind of forcefully draw circles, I guess, with my lightest value to blend. And that's a technique that I'm using for water-based markers. If you're using alcohol markers, you don't have to blend that hard, but with water-based, it takes a little bit of elbow grease, I guess, to get a blended stroke on the paper. Once again, I'm using that fine line black paint pen to define all of the line work. And I do want to point out I used a gel pen with sparkles for her manicure and a white paint pen to make her hair towel more opaque before I put the shadows in. And that finishes off the calendar, which was one of my most favorite spreads ever. And moving on right now to the tasks and habits spread. So this is a, pretty straightforward illustration. I'm just using markers to color it in and add some shadows. I did use this beige Tombow on the bullet nib to add a pattern of like woven fibers to create the basket texture. I'm just lining off some spaces for tasks, and I stamped in miniature calendars for the habits, and that page is good to go. All right, next up, another page of trackers. This is the page that I have set up my productivity tracker and my mood tracker for the month. And because those charts are like long, short rectangles, I had the right shape to draw a shelf going across the top of the page. So this is like a well-appointed bathroom shelf. I've got towels, candles, bath crystals, flowers, cotton balls, etc. From a design perspective, there's a couple of things that I've done throughout every page in this month to keep it all cohesive. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm using a color palette, which means the colors that I use to color the very first page of the notebook are going to be the same colors I use on every page in the notebook. And then this little doodle, the heart with the leaves coming out of it, I have put that doodle on every page. I've hidden it somewhere on every page. Well, I mean, it's not exactly hiding, but I have made sure to have it make an appearance on each page to tie everything together throughout the whole month. And I am using my glitter pen and my gold gel pen to add some final details on the illustration, and then I'm lining off the mood tracker here and the productivity tracker so that I can keep tabs on that stuff each day of the month. So that's another page of trackers finished up, and it's time to move on to the first weekly of January. Here I am inking in my sketch of a very glamorous woman who appears to be fresh out of the shower, or maybe even she's at the pool. But she's in a robe here, and she's applying her lip gloss. And I'm going to go ahead and use the same markers I used for my calendar woman. These are the Crayola Colors of the World markers, and I pretty much use these all the time for blending my skin tones when I draw people. If you guys watch the channel, you know I draw people pretty often. So yeah, the Colors of the World markers are clutch. They are very affordable, and they provide, I think, 24 colors of skin tones in each box. And that always gives me the shades that I need as like a light, medium, and dark value for blending the skin tones. For her glasses, I'm just adding a highlight and a shadow and a little bit of that gold gel pen for the frames. And that's gonna just elevate that illustration a little bit, so it's got a little bit of shine or reflection to it. For the days of the week, I'm using stickers that I just love with the writing. I mean, I could write it all out, but the stickers are so nice and uniform that I can't resist. They're so easy. And then just a little bit of a drop shadow, and that's going to be the structure of my weeklies, not just for this page, but for all the weeklies. For the second week of January, I've chosen to draw a pedicure for the illustration. I love a pedicure. I'm addicted to pedicures, so I couldn't have a self-care themed month without including this. This illustration ended up being one of my favorites from the month, but it was very complex to color it in. So I'll show you some of the techniques I used. First off, I'm doing the floorboards with the diagonal stroke on my beige Tombow marker, just to give it the look of like a pattern of the material in the floor. To give a shadow to the objects sitting on the floorboards, I'm using the same beige marker and just doubling it over itself to create a deeper value. This is a very fancy pedicure. I have a little lavender here with some bath crystals and a candle. and they were so fun to color in as details. I love details, especially when I get to use my glitter pen, like here on the pedicure. I am of the belief that it's the details in artwork, the small little details that take something from, looking good to looking exceptional. So I'm a big believer in putting in the time on the small factors of whatever you're drawing. I think that the details really count. For the look of water in the basin here, I covered over the submerged foot with the same color that I used for the rest of the water. And now I'm coming in with a 0.8 sized white gel pen to add little ripples. And for me, that's what really sells it as water, is having those ripples. And then I am going to put another quote up here. I tried to be really mindful and meaningful with the quotes that I chose. I spent a lot of time looking for quotes that really meant something to me in terms of self-care, because I want this journal to inspire me. I want to take better care of myself, both on the inside and the outside. But at least for this month, at least for January, I've chosen to focus on outer beauty. And for that reason, on my third weekly here, I'm drawing in a makeup bag, to remind me to wear some once in a while. So I've got all these pretty little cosmetics in here. I was kicking myself when I was inking this in, like, why did I choose a cosmetic bag full of angular cosmetics? Like, I could have gone with like rounded edges. Putting in all these angles on the cosmetics was like kind of challenging, but it was worth it, I think, in the end, because it did turn out pretty well, and I love the way the light reflects on each of those facets of the cosmetics. I did deviate from my color palette just a bit to use a silver gel pen for the zipper. And now I'm going back in with my white gel pen to put all the highlights on those lovely facets on the cosmetics pieces. I'm using a light gray Tombow brush marker to add a shadow to the finished image. And as I was putting in my quote here, it occurred to me I was missing something from the image, and that's a logo on the bag. And I'm so glad that I went back and added this little detail, because for me, it elevated the whole illustration. So I was really happy with week 3. On the 4th weekly spread, I have an illustration going down here of a woman who is styling her hair. The fine liners that I'm using for all of these images today, they are from the brand Yisan, and they are really, really great fine liners. They do not smear when I go on top of it with marker. And that is just a critical feature. A lot of fine liners say that they are waterproof, but then when you test it, when you go in with marker, you find that they smudge. Even if they've dried for, an hour, they still smudge when you put marker on top. But this brand really doesn't. And I will link it in the description box, because fine liners are so important to the illustrations that I do. But for anybody that's bullet journaling, you're going to want that waterproof quality. And I do have a 20% off discount from Yisan for those fine liners for my audience, and I will put that in the description box for you guys if you're interested. I am gonna brighten up her lipstick and her manicure with a little bit of my deepest pink color, and then I'm using a gradient to get a round effect on the styling tool that she's using. For her hair, although I intend her to be a brunette, I started with a blonde layer because I want some highlights in her hair. So to get those to peek through the dark brown, I had to leave them open. So I always start, when I'm using markers, I start with the lightest color first and then work my way down to the darkest color so that I can leave some highlights for a little bit of interest. And although this is definitely not a self-portrait, I did give her my exact same haircut with the length and color, and especially that blonde streak coming through the bangs. That's what my hair looks like, and that helped make the illustration look a little bit more personal, and I think it'll help inspire me a little bit more when I look at it when it's all done. So there's week 4 finished up. I loved this one, And we're gonna move on now to the last page of the journal spread for January. This might be my second favorite illustration, or maybe it's my first, I don't know. But I've drawn a little mirrored tray here full of beautiful, like, lotions and potions, I'll call them. I'm going to start off their base layer with just a single stroke of the Tombow marker in my lightest pink shade. And once I have them all colored in here, I'm going to use my white paint pen to color in the pieces that I would like to appear white so that the dot grid doesn't show through. And then I've got the gold gel pen here to add a little like fanciness to them. So I'm going to give each bottle a gold accent somewhere to keep them all like matching as part of a set. And then I put these little beads around the mirror tray that I just thought were gorgeous. And once I hit them with that gold gel pen, it just lightened up the whole picture. And I'm going to take a similar strategy with my pink glitter pen. I am going to put some kind of hot pink glitter item on each bottle so that, again, that they look like they're part of a set. So now that my base layer of color is down, I'm ready to add dimension with a gray marker for shadows. So I started with this little glass vessel, and then I'm coming back in to the larger bottles, and I'm going to keep all my gray shading, and then here with the pink, my darker color shading. It's all going to be going to the left side of the picture, or the left side of the object, and that's because I imagine that my light source is coming from the right hand side of the image. So the shadow, it's going to throw a shadow all the same direction, always to the left. And I hope that you guys are enjoying watching the illustration process in these images. I plan to do a lot more like how to illustrate kind of videos in the upcoming year. And I'm really excited to ask for your feedback and input on what kind of videos I should make about drawing. So whatever questions you guys might have, specific questions that you want answered about how to draw, how to color, you know, what tools to use, let me know what is on your mind, and I will address them in my upcoming videos. But for now, let's take a look back at a final flip through for the month of January. And like I said earlier, I'm so excited to start using this notebook. I feel like it's really going to motivate me to do a little more work on the beauty front this month. And that's the way I'd like to start out this brand new year. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, I would invite you to come check it out at Bright Violet Arts. I do post frequently throughout the month on Instagram, and I especially love previewing my themes for the upcoming month and showing work in progress photos of my drawings. So if you're interested in that, check it out on IG. And otherwise, I hope that you will subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up so that you can continue to see more bullet journal and illustration videos from me. And as always, the comments are open, so please hit me with any feedback or questions that you have. I would love to be helpful to you if there's something I can answer. But that's it for this video, so Happy New Year to all of you. Thanks for checking out Bright Violet Arts, and I'll see you again soon.